Welcome to Empowering Seniors. I'm your host, Katherine Ambrose, and I'm with Ray Wills, a Broadway star who lives here in Wichita, and he's doing some special things in our community. Welcome, Ray.
Hi, thank you.
So we're at Lake Point Assisted Living, and you're running a storytelling group.
Yes.
And we hear that is very, very popular.
It really is. We call it a class, but it's a group. And some people like to write stories. Some people like to tell their stories. Some people like to come and just listen. But we've been doing it now for 3 or 4 months. And the group has really bonded and come together. Everybody's friends. There's no criticism. There's no critiquing. There's no grading. We share stories. And you see how they've changed by getting to know each other and by having their stories told and listened to. Everybody has a story to tell, and they deserve to be heard. And these folks have a lot of stories. They've lived full, interesting lives, and it's empowering, to use a phrase. Because we're all active and we're all aging. And you know, by the way, this is, Rose came up with the subtitle for our group. She said, we're at Lake Point, where there's no lake and no point. So you're still getting your stories typed up, Bob, or did you bring one? I see you got a folder there. If you want me to read it, I can read a few pages. Okay, well, let's see.
I don't even have the title on it yet.
Okay. I think I can read that. So here's Bob's story. He doesn't have a title yet. Carl Davis just turned 18 and graduated from high school. He lived on a farm outside of Odessa, Texas, and for the last 2 years played guitar and sang with a local country band. He dreamed of bigger things as he wanted to be a country star. He'd saved up some money, and his old van was in good running condition, so he left his family, and the next stop would be Dallas. The money was good, and Carl said yes. This 1 year lasted 3. And after about 1 year, Carl started dating one of the girls, who worked at the front door. That's getting good now. 1 year later, Carl Davis, Darlene Jones married and continued to work at the club. Carl still had his sights set on Nashville, though. What's going to happen next? I think that's to be continued. That's pretty good, Bob. Good job. Thank you. He wrote that yesterday?
2 days.
How'd you get inspired with that story?
I started that story Saturday, actually, but I was watching a TV network here, it's been probably a couple of months back, and they interviewed a kind of semi-retired country singer that's still in business a little bit. And I remembered some things from an earlier interview that I'd seen with him. And so all of a sudden there was an idea hit me. And then once an idea hits me, that's one eye, the first eye. The second idea is imagination, and I just let it flow. 1964, it was about, I don't know, probably 3 months. I spent every Sunday afternoon in a motel in Gulfport, Mississippi. And I had a tablet with me. Now, what I did, I just write little half-page things, didn't amount to anything. In fact, I don't even have them anymore. But then this started, and I'll be honest with you, Vicki put that folder up, or that flyer. I walked by that thing for a couple of months, and, I'm not going to mess with that old stuffy guy telling me what I can do and write and have you. So the very last Wednesday morning, I thought, well, I'm not doing anything, so I'll just go. If I don't like it, I don't have to stay. Well, you can see I'm still here, and thank goodness for Ray Wills. He's one of the best men I've ever met. He's common, he's one of us. He's not the old stuffy professor. He's just one of us, and he's very knowledgeable and knows what to do and how to do it, and I've learned a lot from him. I've written 10, since we started, I've written 10 stories, and I'm getting ready to get them copyrighted as a bundle, and then we'll put them in a book, short story book.
At first I wasn't gonna come. I didn't know if I could write stories, and the first one I didn't come because I didn't think I'd be interesting. But then I came the second time, I thought, hey, that's gonna be interesting. So I wrote a story, and the story I wrote was about my life, and it was good. They said it was good. It was about my life, and it was concerning, I need to let the other girls know about my life. And then I wrote other stories, and the last story I wrote was about my work. If we couldn't have the storytelling, I don't know what we'd do, because I don't know how we would miss it, because I didn't think I could come up with a story each week, but it takes me time to come up with one, but I came up with one every week so far.
Did you ever expect to have homework again?
No, I didn't expect to have homework again. My husband says, are you writing another story? I said, yeah, I'm writing another story. He says, help me write a story. And he says, I got a story, but he has a hard time writing, so I write it for him. He tells me what to write, but I write it for him.
It gives other people an insight into your life. It can give them a tremendous lift too. It gives me an awful big lift sometimes. I think of coming to this class, and I feel tremendously heightened. Before I came to this class, I was very introvert, extremely so. I've kind of shed that shell.
It's an activity that the volunteers have come to Lake Point to go ahead and sacrifice a little bit of their time to fill up our days with not only enjoyment, but knowledge and understanding. When you don't have somebody up here and then somebody down here, sometimes you're a little bit afraid to share with them. We're right here intermingling. There's nothing that I wouldn't ask. There's nothing that I wouldn't do for, or there's nothing that I wouldn't accept from any of the staff or any of the other residents here at Lake Point. The storytelling and the writing just kind of opens everybody up, and it's more enticing for us. I used to be so introverted, nobody could get anything out of me at all. But now my nickname is Mr. Motormouth.
He challenged us to either write something or bring a story back, and well, I'll surely do something. I do not sit around and think, what am I going to write? I let it come to me.
Where do you think that comes from?
Who knows?
So they were really touting your writing skills, and you've published on Amazon your memoir.
Yes, it's a short memoir about when I was in the producers on Broadway. It's called Being Max. And I was in the show, but I was also an understudy for the star, Nathan Lane, who's the star of the show. And the first time I had to go on for him, it was with 3 hours notice, and I was absolutely terrified, but it went okay. So I wrote a book about that. And I mean, I try not to make it too much about me in here, but I've read them selections of it, and I'm gonna have the audiobook coming out, and we're gonna have a party and listen to it.
That sounds great. And it sounds like a couple of them are planning to publish their own group of stories thanks to you.
Yes, it's encouraged them. I think it's given them confidence. And because I said, well, I put my money where my mouth is. I wrote a story, so you can too. And it's not, I can tell you how to do it if you want. And a couple of them really are excited about that. It's empowered them. Speaking of empowering seniors, it's empowered them. It's really cool.
So you've been doing this for how long?
This group? Since June all summer. The first week in June we started, and I was only going to cut out a couple of times, and everyone started to enjoy it so much, and they wouldn't let it go. Now it's their group, and they would ask Vicki, when is Ray coming back? Is he coming back next week? And we're just going to do it as long as they want to be here.
So you've been a working actor your whole life?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I grew up in Wichita, and then I went to New York City, and I lived there for about 25 years and made my living as an actor. You know, I did Broadway shows. I was in 4 Broadway musicals, and Law and Order, Guiding Light, different, all kinds of different things in my career. And then about 10 years ago, I got the opportunity to come back home to teach, and I taught theater at Newman University and communications at Butler Community College. And I taught a class called Interpersonal Communication, which is about how we talk and listen interpersonally. And I just developed in that class sort of a conversation group where they would have a journal entry each week, the students, and then the first hour of class, we'd go around and discuss and talk and have a conversation. And that was really successful, and the students always loved it. And so that's sort of the idea of our group here at Lake Point. I don't give them an assignment. They don't have to do anything specific, but we come in and we start talking, and sometimes they have a story that leads to another story, and we just have a great time talking and listening. And the folks really enjoy it, and I really enjoy it too.
Well, you can tell they enjoy it, and that even though maybe you haven't assigned them homework, they're really serious about writing their stories and being prepared for your class.
They're lovely people. They're just the nicest people. And the longer we've done this, everybody's bonded and grown really close. And you'd be surprised some of the personal stories that come out, people share once they trust each other. And it's healthy. It's healthy. It's healthy to laugh, and it's healthy to learn and keep active mentally as well as physically. And so there's a lot of benefits to it, I think.
What was your first introduction to Lake Point? What brought you here?
Well, Vicki Straughter is an old friend of mine, and she's one of the executive directors, and also does a lot of activities with the independent living part here. She's very devoted to the people here and really tries to enrich their lives in a lot of different ways. And I've been out here Christmas caroling with other actors, singing, and I do a one-man show about Harry Truman, and I did perform that out here. And we just had come up with some different ideas about things we wanted to do, and this idea came up, and I wrote a story, a ebook. It's a short Broadway memoir of when I was in the producers on Broadway, and I let Vicki read it, and she really liked it and said, well, why don't you come in and read your story to the folks? And I said, well, we could do this script, and we just sort of put it together with the idea, and it blossomed from there.
And on that point, let's meet Vicki and see if their stories match up. Meet Vicki Straughter. She is the Executive Director for Independent Living at Lake Point. Vicki, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
I love what you're doing here with Ray, just adding a lot of joy into your residents' lives here. That's quite evident.
Thank you.
And so do you have a background in acting or performance?
My background is mainly in dance, but I have done quite a bit of acting as well.
And so it sounds like maybe you're trying to bring some of that show business or that excitement in here.
Well, we want to bring excitement in everything that we do for the residents. And Ray and I were talking one day after I read his memoir, Being Max, and we decided to put this together and have them tell their stories, have the residents, and it has just blown up. We thought we would do it maybe for a month, one hour a week for a month, but we're into our 5th month now.
What kind of changes have you noticed with the residents?
Oh, watching them, their posture, watching their energy, watching everything about them, it's like they came young again. We called it Bring Your Stories to Life, and actually it has brought them to life. It is just amazing. If you could see these people from the beginning, the first time that we had this, and they were all kind of skeptical about Ray because they know that he's, a Broadway star and that kind of thing. And then to now, they all are Broadway stars. And it's just wonderful. Ray had I have to tell you, they were worried about one of the titles that a man was going to have for his story. And they were so afraid that, copyright. And so Ray gave a class on copyright. And after he was done with this class, you could see this man sitting. And as the class was going on, he just grew. And as he walked out of this room, it was like watching a 17-year-old boy getting ready for a date, going out just as fast as he could, because he knew his facts, he knew what he wanted to do, and he was empowered.
So Vicki, what's one of your favorite memories so far?
One of my favorite is from a lady named Rose. Ray was talking about musicals and, some of the things that he has done. And she, all of a sudden, she said, I did a musical when I was 15. She's 93 now. And she just, in the middle of all of it, just started singing this song about washing dishes. And she didn't stop. She kept going through the entire song. It was magical.
Well, that is fantastic. So what are you going to do to top this? Now you've got this great class going. What else are you going to come up with?
Oh boy, I'll tell you, that's a hard one. I have no idea what's coming next, but we're always looking for new things to do.
How can people in the community reach out to senior centers or senior living communities and find out if they might be able to volunteer?
All they have to do is pick up the phone and give any of the communities around Wichita a call, or one of the senior centers, and say, hey, this is a skill that I have, and they will probably use you. We're looking for volunteers all the time.
Because you have a big calendar to fill too.
Oh, yes.
So,
yes.
So all these activities can be so meaningful.
And there's so many diverse people that if you have a skill, there's going to be someone in there that says, hey, that's something I'd like to do.
That's fantastic. And that's probably not limited to just Wichita, but any community, anywhere.
Oh, that's true. That is true.
It's something universal, as is storytelling. And thank you for giving your residents a chance to tell their stories.
Thank you.
And let's get back to our conversation with Ray. So Ray, they got to see you maybe the first time as Christmas Caroler or as Harry Truman, and then you read your story and encouraged them to start writing or telling their stories. What kind of differences have you noticed in them from the beginning?
I think at first they were curious the first day that we did this, and I think they were hesitant because they didn't know what I was going to do. And I think one of the guys in the group said he wasn't sure he was interested in some highfalutin college professor, some stuffy guy to come in and tell him what he's doing. And it's not that way at all. And so as we've gone on over these weeks, every week we meet, people have bonded, they've gotten closer, they've opened up. The nice things they tell me all the time is that they look forward to this so much, and everybody wants to be listened to and heard, and it changes them in inside and out. Sometimes they have a little spring in their step. Sometimes they get into giggling fits, and we all start laughing together. It's just about communication and just connecting, and actually everybody has gotten closer and really cares about each other. We all do.
And how's this impacted you as a volunteer? You thought you were just going to come in a few times, and now it's become a regular activity.
Oh, I absolutely love it. It's been very rewarding and enriching for me. Just to make them feel that they are being seen and heard, and that everyone's important, And I try to talk less about me and more about them, but I always tell them a story, something that's happened in my week or in my day, and we start to go from there. And I'm very privileged. I feel really lucky, and I like to share what I've learned and what I know.
I know a lot of people are very interested in the other job that you do, working with physicians. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I just took early retirement from teaching about a year or so ago. But for the past 9 years or so, I've worked at the KU School of Medicine in what they call standardized patient, which is basically we role play with the medical students. I'll have a script, I'll have certain conditions, and they have to diagnose what's wrong with me. The sessions are recorded so that the actual doctors can critique them or talk about their medical acumen. And then I get to give them notes on their communication skills. How did they listen? How did they make me feel? Are they treating me like a real person or with empathy, or are they just processing me? And these are skills that young medical students need to practice with a real person. And so that's incredibly rewarding. It's always interesting. And I love doing that too.
It seems like that and this together probably work well too, because you're really getting to know a group that's older. And how does that inform you with the other things that you do?
Whatever, the young medical students, and then I just learn. I learn daily something, and I feel I'm giving something back, and that's really important. I think to share your life experiences and give back, and try to make other people happy, or try to help these medical students become better doctors someday. And in that job, I get to do things I get to act and I get to teach. So, that's what I've done my whole life too. So I'm really quite fortunate. But it's a feeling that you get when you really do give back to people and help them learn and discover something. It makes me happy to make them happy, and just to listen to them, just to listen and encourage them to share, and it's a real gift.
Ray, what would you say to professionals that are out there watching about how they might think creatively, how to use their skills and reach out to people living in a setting like this?
Well, I think that's just it. Reach out and ask what you can do, and whatever skills you have. If you're a teacher, if you were a singer, if you're a financial planner, whatever skills you have and whatever knowledge you have, it's really pretty simple just to talk to an activity director or a director at, say, an assisted living or independent living place. Just say, hey, I'd like to come and share some of my knowledge, and have a talk and see where that goes. But it takes a certain amount of dedication, because if the folks really start to like it and they're having a good time and this is their group, you can't just abandon them. If you're going to call it a group and you're going to say you're the teacher, then you got to come to class. And it's not hard to do at all. And it's an hour or two out of my week. It doesn't cost me anything, but the rewards are, it's worth it. It's very satisfying. So I would just say reach out.
Ray, thank you so much for what you're doing, empowering seniors in real life here.
My pleasure.
And thank you so much for being on the show. And thank you for watching Empowering Seniors. I'm your host, Katherine Ambrose. If you have show topic suggestions or questions, just reach out at empoweringseniors@kpts.org or give us a call at 316-686-4500. Until next time, I'm Katherine Ambrose.